What if every choice you made, from the way you spoke to the way you folded a towel, came with an audience? Not an audience cheering you on, but one waiting to correct you. The way you walk, the way you cook, the way you send a text, the way you breathe. Every detail observed, evaluated, and adjusted. Not because you asked for help, but because someone else decided you can't be trusted to get it right. It starts so small you barely notice it. A suggestion here, a helpful little tip there, a light correction about how something should be done. At first, you go along with it because it seems harmless, maybe even helpful. But the notes keep coming. The instructions get longer. And before long, you're not just doing the task, you're performing it for inspection. Over time, you stop working from your own instincts. You wait for input before you act. You change your pace, your method, even your posture to match what they expect. Not because you believe it's better, but because you know what will happen if you don't. This is not care and it's not collaboration. This is micromanagement, the slow, strategic dismantling of your autonomy until you're no longer living for yourself, but for someone else's approval. Today, we're going to break down the control tactic of micromanagement, one of the most exhausting and quietly corrosive tactics in the blueprint of family violence against men. We'll look at how it begins under the cover of help or standards, how it expands until there's no action that is safe from correction, and how it rewires you to second guess even the smallest of choices. Micromanagement in an abusive relationship is the ongoing control of how you perform everyday tasks, make decisions, or manage responsibilities where your actions are monitored, corrected, or overridden, often down to even the smallest of details. It's not about collaboration or shared standards, it's about replacing your judgment with theirs. The tactic works by eroding your autonomy in small, repetitive ways. Every action becomes subject to an inspection, a comment, or an improvement. Until you are no longer acting freely, you are performing under constant oversight. This isn't about whether the task completed was done well. It's about reinforcing the idea that your way is never good enough and theirs is the only acceptable way. In abusive dynamics, micromanagement is often framed as care or helpfulness or a desire for efficiency, but its true function is to create a hierarchy where they are the authority and you are the subordinate. By continually interrupting your process, imposing their preferences, or redoing your work, they send the message that you cannot be trusted to act independently. Over time, this changes the way you think and behave. You may begin to second guess your own methods, hesitate before starting something, or preemptively adjust your actions to avoid the criticism. Eventually, you stop making choices for yourself and start living in a constant state of self monitoring, trained to align with their expectations before you even act. Let's now take a look at 6 ways micromanagement shows up in an abusive relationship. The first way micromanagement shows up is through preemptive instruction. Preemptive instruction is when the abuser gives you detailed directions before you have even started the task. On the surface, it's framed as helpful, caring, or efficient, but at its core, it removes your ability to act independently. The message is simple: you can't be trusted to get things right without their input. This tactic works by cutting off initiative before it can happen. Instead of letting you decide how to do something, they map it out for you in advance, telling you what to say, what to do, what order to do it in, even what emotional tone to adopt. It's not about ensuring a good outcome, it's about making sure the outcome reflects their control. It usually starts in small, seemingly harmless ways. Before you head out, they tell you what to wear, how to act, or what story to give if someone asks questions. Before you call someone, they give you a list of exact phrases to use or even forbid. At first, it might feel like they're just trying to make sure things go smoothly, but over time, it changes how you operate. You no longer decide how to handle situations yourself. You're running a script that somebody else wrote. For men, this often hides under the label of normal relationship dynamics. Being told what to say to the school, how to speak to a neighbor, or how to play with your own children gets framed as support, but the subtext is clear. Your instincts aren't valid, your judgment is suspect. The real damage comes from the conditioning this creates. At first, you might follow their script to avoid criticism or conflict, but soon you find yourself waiting for instructions before acting, not because you believe it's better, but because you've learned that doing it your way will only bring blowback. That's when the tactic has taken hold. You've stopped leading with your own actions and start living under someone else's pre approval. The second way micromanagement shows up is through task correction. Task correction is when the abuser consistently picks apart your efforts, not because the job is unfinished, but because it wasn't done their way. The end result might be fine, but the focus is on how you did it, how long it took, or even your attitude while doing it. The underlying message is the same. Your judgment is flawed, and only their way is acceptable. This is not genuine feedback, and it's not about learning, improving, or teamwork. It's about eroding your confidence and reinforcing dependency on them. Even when you've met the standard, they'll just move the goalposts, introducing new criteria or reframing the issues so you still come up short. Over time, you stop feeling capable in areas you once handled with ease. In many relationships, correction is a normal part of collaboration, but here it is weaponized. The task could be cleaning a bench or folding laundry, cooking dinner, or even just making a phone call. The pattern is that the outcome is never quite right. Not because it was genuinely wrong, but because declaring it wrong keeps them in control. And unlike someone who steps in to do it themselves, they often make you do it all over again. The unspoken rule is you're responsible for the work, but never trusted to complete it properly. For men, this can be particularly hard to spot because it's often disguised as high standards or even helpfulness. You might hear things like, I'm just trying to show you the right way, or I thought you'd want to improve. But the subtext is that your competence is always under review. The constant redoing and nitpicking seeds hesitation. You start bracing yourself for criticism before you even begin. The control isn't in the correction itself. It's in the fact that you start moving through life expecting to fail their inspection. You try harder, but the definition of right keeps shifting. And eventually you stop aiming for what's right altogether. You just aim for whatever keeps the peace. The third way micromanagement shows up is through real time oversight. Real time oversight is when the abuser inserts themselves into whatever you're doing as you are doing it. They stand over you, hover nearby, or interject in the middle of your actions, not to collaborate, but to supervise and correct within the moment. The presence itself communicates a clear message. You can't be trusted to do this on your own. This is not passive observation, it's active interference. Folding laundry becomes a running commentary. Cooking dinner turns into a lesson on the right way to chop a vegetable. Talking on the phone invites whispered prompts or hand gestures telling you what to say. Even the smallest choices, where to put an item, which words to use, how fast you're working, are monitored and up for correction. This is about breaking your ability to act freely without anticipating criticism. When someone is watching and correcting you in real time, you stop thinking creatively or independently. Your attention shifts from the task itself to the performance of the task, always checking in your mind, will they approve of this? This often gets dismissed as a supportive partner taking an interest or just helping you improve. But genuine support doesn't make you tense up when someone enters the room. Genuine support doesn't make you lose your train of thought mid sentence because you're bracing for an interjection. This is about surveillance disguised as assistance, control dressed up as care. Over time, that hovering over you becomes internalized. Even when they are not in the room, you hear their voice in your head, correcting your tone, your posture, your timing. The effect isn't just that you lose privacy while you act, you lose the mental space to act as yourself at all. The fourth way micromanagement shows up is through corrective surveillance. Corrective surveillance is when your work is reviewed after the fact, not to recognize your efforts, but to find fault in what you've done. The abuser waits until you have finished. Then they inspect what you've done, critique it, or they even redo what you've done. The goal is to remind you that you did not get it right and to reinforce that they are the authority on who decides what right even means. It's an audit. Wiping a bench is met with a fingertip run across a surface to point out a missed spot. Packing a bag for the children gets reframed as careless because you didn't include an extra snack. Locking the door is questioned, not because it's unlocked, but because you didn't do it in the exact sequence they prefer. The corrections are rarely about the standard of the task, they're just about control. The standard can shift at any moment, so even when you do meet the expectations, there's always something you supposedly missed. Over time, you stop feeling like a competent human being. You stop finishing a job with pride because you're bracing for the moment they'll come through and check your work. This behavior often hides under the label of attention to detail, but it is not mentorship. Mentorship celebrates progress. Corrective surveillance erases it. The real message is you'll never get this right without me. That belief starts to embed itself until you find yourself redoing tasks preemptively, not because they need to be done, but because you've been trained to expect they will find fault. The power of this tactic lies in its timing. It does not disrupt you in the moment, it makes you wait for the verdict. That waiting becomes a constant hum in the background of your life. And eventually, you're not just trying to get the task done, you're trying to survive the inspection that will inevitably follow. The fifth way micromanagement shows up is through emotional coaching. Emotional coaching is when your feelings themselves become something to be monitored, corrected, and controlled. We touched on the monitoring component in a different episode of the Blueprint of Family Violence Against Men. Here, it's not just about what you did, it's about how you felt while doing it. The abuser steps in to redefine your internal world, telling you which emotions are acceptable, which ones you're allowed to feel, and which ones are wrong for feeling them. This often hides under different types of language, like I'm just trying to help you see how you came across. But it's not care, it's emotional dominance. You might be calm, measured, yet be told you are angry. You might be quietly tired, but here you're sulking. You might express hurt, only to be told you are too sensitive, you're making a big deal out of nothing. Your own reading of your own emotions eventually become overridden by their reading of your emotions until you start doubting your own internal compass. This correction is about rewriting the narrative so your emotions fit their version of events. If they can convince you that your feelings are irrational, manipulative, or even imaginary, they can dismiss your responses entirely. This removes one of the last forms of autonomy that you have, the right to decide what you are feeling and why. This tactic can cut especially deep. For men, we are taught from a young age that emotions are weakness, that stoicism is strength. So when a partner so called teaches us that our feelings are invalid or inappropriate, it can actually feel like confirmation of those old messages, reinforcing the idea that we can't trust ourselves emotionally. The result is a very deep erosion of your confidence, not just in how we act, but in who we are. You start pre editing your reactions to avoid triggering correction. You hide your joy in case it's mocked. You mute your frustration so it can't be called aggression. You even hold back your affection if you fear it'll be reframed as trying too hard. And eventually, you're not just managing your actions, you're managing your feelings too, living in a state where nothing you feel is truly yours anymore. The sixth way micromanagement shows up is through parental reversal. Parental reversal is when your partner stops relating to you as an equal adult and instead assumes the position of a parent, not in moments of genuine care, but as a constant posture of authority and superiority. In this dynamic, You're treated less like a partner and more like a child who needs guidance, correction, and permission. At first, it kind of looks a little harmless. Like, did you eat today? Are you sure you want to wear that? But the tone's not affectionate, it's condescending. These moments become the default way they interact with you. Your preferences are overruled, your routines are policed, and your decisions are second guessed. Choices that should be personal, like what to eat, when to rest, how you manage your day, become subject to their approval. The damage here is more than the micro corrections, it's the message beneath them. Parental reversal sends a signal that you are incapable of managing your own life without their oversight. It reframes your autonomy as irresponsibility, your preferences as poor judgment, your independence as something that needs to be reined in. You stop feeling like an equal in the relationship and start feeling like you are constantly in trouble, waiting for the next reminder, lecture, or subtle put down. This tactic can be especially disorientating because it strikes at two core identities that men hold at once: your role as a competent adult and your role as a partner. When you're spoken to like a teenager, scolded for choices that are yours to make, or praised for completing basic tasks, it creates a power imbalance that feels emasculating. This is about rewriting the relational hierarchy so you are always the junior. The end result is a quiet but profound shift in how you see yourself. You might start second guessing even small choices, hesitating before acting or defaulting to check in first, even when you don't need to. The more you adapt to this, the more the parental framing sticks, until one day you realize you have stopped thinking for yourself as a full, equal adult in your own relationship. For most men, success is measured by outcomes. Did the job get done? Was the problem solved? That's a whole scoreboard. The method matters less than the result. Because in our world, getting to the end goal is what counts. That's why micromanagement can be so disorientating. Because it's not about whether the job was done right, it's about how you do it. You can hit the target perfectly and still be told you failed because you didn't fire the arrow the way they wanted. That disconnect is what makes this tactic so effective. You don't see it as a power play, not at first. We think, fine, you want it done that way? As long as the end result's right, I'll do it. And that's where it slips in. We don't push back because to us, the bigger win is getting the job finished without conflict. If following the abuser's method avoids a fight, we'll take that trade. It feels like a small concession at the time, but each step is a step towards letting them run the whole playbook. The frustration builds when they're instructing or correcting things you already know how to do. You've changed a tire before. You've made those meals for years. You've mopped a floor 100 times. But here you are being told to do it differently. Not because it's wrong, but because it's not their way. And you let it happen. Because what's the harm? Well, the harm is the shift you barely noticed. The moment your own judgment stops being the default. Their voice moves into your head. You hear it when you pick up a tool, start a conversation, or fold a towel. It's not just about how you act when they are in the room, it's about how you act when they are not. You hesitate. You replay their past corrections before you even start. You adjust your steps to match the version they've drilled into you, even when you are alone. That's when you realize the real power of micromanagement. It's not in the petty corrections or the hovering supervision. It's in convincing you that their way is the only safe way until you stop acting from your own instincts altogether. Micromanagement might look small on the surface: a few extra instructions, a couple of corrections, bit of help you didn't ask for. But stacked together day after day, it is not help. It's a slow erasure of trust in your own decision making and judgment. Every adjustment they make to your process chips away at your independence. Every correction rewrites the idea that you can be trusted to get things right on your own. And once that way becomes the only way, your way disappears. This is why recognizing this matters. Not because you need to win the argument over how to stack the dishwasher, but because if you let them own how you do everything, it won't be long before they own what you do and eventually who you are. This is Stand Again, lived experience platform for male survivors of family violence. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Your voice might just help another man find his. If you're looking for one on one support, you can book coaching with a member of the Stand Again team. Simply visit standagain.com.au, where you will also find grounded information on surviving and recovering from family violence as a man. As always, remember that no matter how many times you've been knocked down, you can stand again.